All right, Fury versus Ngannou. Yesterday, the line opened at DraftKings. Plus 500. That's what Tyson was. And that looks like a guaranteed 20% on your money. This would be the most lopsided sporting event of recent memory and likely of your lifetime. So I came to you guys and I told you about this, and I told you this isn't going to last long. There's going to be some guys that see this that are going to put some real money down, $100,000 bet. They're going to come in. This looks like an assured 20%. This is what it looks like. And I was right. That was 1 day ago that I told you that. It is now 8-1. Just to explain this to you. Now, before we go any further, let me ask you a fair question. Do you want to hear my opinion on this fight? Do I have the right to give you an opinion when I have been wrong about everything regarding this fight so far? It's relevant that we bring that up, and we can acknowledge it. We can acknowledge that Chael got this wrong. You want to know why? Let me ask you a hard question. Okay, but we're going to play a game. This is a game where, so somebody's forcing you. Therefore, you must give an answer. You got to get... Which is more unlikely? That Francis Ngannou beat Tyson Fury, which reasonably means he connects with full power early and knocks Tyson out. Okay? That sounds unlikely to you, right? That sounds very unlikely to you. But what's more unlikely? That, or that Francis Ngannou, who has a bum knee, who's under contract with the UFC, who's their reigning champion, and who is being told no by the legal force of his contract that he can even go and do the match. So his ability to get the match up against all those things I just listed, by the way, let's add with zero experience to it, or him to win the match once he's got it. Which one do you find to be more unlikely? Because I think he's far more likely to win the match than to get through what he already conquered. That was mission impossible that he pulled off by himself. You can pull some of those capers behind the scenes, but you've got to have some real connections. You've got to have some real deep relationships. And I would just argue for you that he's already done the hard part. And when you talk about can he win, I will stand by this is the most lopsided sporting event, right? You're taking, just so you guys understand, you're taking LeBron, Colby, rest his soul. You're taking the rest of the team. You're taking Phil Jackson. You're taking the great. You're taking the Lakers. They're great. And you're putting them against Manning and the Patriots, but you're doing it in football rules. That's exactly what you're doing here. That is ridiculous from a competitive standpoint. That is ridiculous. To the point that what I just laid out for you has never even been attempted. It's ridiculous. Well, that's what's happening here when I call it lopsided. That is exactly what's happening here. But there's still a discussion. There's still a discussion because for this to be lopsided, we are expecting Tyson Fury that we're used to, who takes these very serious, who's a second-generation guy, who shows respect to his club, to his trainers, a respect to his father who watches on each day, who gets his weight under control, who studies tape, who comes in with a plan. And there's a lot of times off the top of my head through history, including regional shows that perhaps you guys haven't heard about, where this very thing has happened and the ace went down because he overlooked his opponent. And what happens when you overlook an opponent, let me give you an example. When you box, you always want to look good. Like there's a way you want to look, and it all comes back to when you were a little kid and saw it for the first time and dreamed of doing it someday. Asked your dad to get you some gloves and get you down to the gym, right? That little kid in you comes out and you want to look good. When are you going to do it? The level of skill that you would have to look good. Like if you guys ever watched Roy Jones boxing in the 90s, you would then dream that you could go in the ring and that you could put your hands down, that you could put your chin out, that you could slip those punches anyway with it down. Right? Remember Muhammad Ali up against the ropes? Was it 17 punches? 17 punches where his hands were down like this against the rope, and he avoided all 17. It was like against Frazier. But do you guys know this scenario? But then you dream of it. You dream that you could do that, but when can you actually do it? That's a dream. It's an idea to get you in the gym, and I'm going to do that in my next fight. When the next fight comes, there's a rule. Just win tonight. Look good next time. So when you find yourself in a spot where you can actually do the things that you dreamed, the guys that you thought were cool, the true great ever, which people don't talk about, Sugar Ray Leonard. He would do these. You ever see Sugar Ray? He'd do this, and he'd hit you, then he'd do this, and he'd hit you with the other hand. I mean, right? There was things that you see, go, my guy, why I want to be like this guy. What do I got to do? How can I get my moment? I only bring that to you because that is where Tyson Fury has found himself for possibly the first time in his career. Is he going to go out and try to do something to look good, to look cool? Is he going to go out there and try to be Mr. Silly Boy and land 100 shots on Francis while not taking any back? He has the skills and the ability to do it. At least according to the odds makers, I got him an 8-1 favorite. He will go off a bit stronger than an 8-1, by the way. That gap is not going to close this way. It's going to spread. Is he going to prepare properly? Why would you? Why would you? You know how hard it is to prepare for a boxing match? Why would you, knowing that's not what I'm going into here? Right? Francis going into a boxing match with a guy that doesn't box. He's not a boxer. Francis can't call himself a boxer. He can call himself a boxer eventually. I don't know what the date of this fight is. After that fight, he can call himself a boxer. Then he's not even a boxer. I mean, right? Do you understand my point? And I could just tell you times in history where that's happened. And a guy put his hands down. He tried to look good. He tried to look cute. And I'll tell you this from personal experience as a wrestler. I never got hurt in a wrestling room. Ever. When I was going with a guy that knew how to wrestle. Where the ouch comes in is with the new guy that doesn't know what he's doing. And punches are very, very difficult when they're coming from a style that you're not used to. I didn't know about this. Grappled. Michael Bisping was at an event many years ago. And Michael Bisping and I grapple. They had Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio wrestle. And they had an MMA fighter who was 5-3. Box Roy Jones Jr. And I saw Roy at breakfast that morning. And Roy told me, and I was very surprised. Thought this was a walk in the park. He told me he was concerned about the angles and combinations that MMA guys use. Because no matter how experienced he was, he had never seen that. And it was very interesting to me. It really affected me. Whoa, I didn't even respond to him. I was so caught off guard, I just tucked it away. And when that fight began, Roy ended up stopping this guy. But when the fight began, Roy was he was trying to watch, he was trying to measure, he was trying to understand. And he took a few blows doing that. And I just bring it to you because if you're going to fight with your hands down, no matter how accomplished you are, Francis Ngannou is not the guy to do that with. Tim Sylvia had done a favor for Monty Cox. It's a small show. And they got Ray Mercer to agree to fight in MMA rules. And that was a joke, right? Wrestler, the great MMA fighter versus a pure boxer. Like this had been established. It's been well proven. Not to mention Mercer wasn't even a boxer anymore. At that point, he was a former boxer. And Tim Sylvia did not take it serious, not with the urgency that he needed to. Meanwhile, Mercer had an incredible urgency to get it done right now. Why? Because while 80% of fights go to the ground, I know that status out there and that expression. The expression that you guys don't hear, 100% of fights start standing up. So Mercer has an urgency. I must get this job done now. And Tim came out, I got 15 minutes to work with this old man. Boom, one punch. It was a huge upset. And even after you see that upset, you congratulate Ray. Ray, that's the right thing to do. You congratulate him. You let him have that sigh of relief, which he did very visibly in front of everybody. But you still don't wake up the next morning and imagine that Ray Mercer is a better fighter than Tim Sylvia. You just understand what happened in that moment. At one moment, one shot, and Tim gave it to him. And I could just tell you more stories like that, like the approach of Tyson. It's very real. This is the most lopsided match ever. Sure it is. But as unlikely as Francis is to win, that is an easier narrative to buy than the idea that he could get the fight in the first place, and he already has. I think you should take that into consideration.